I'm going to do a... Can't hear it? Can you hear it now? Okay, good. I know what we got to do. I don't know how we can do it without our volunteers. They're all over the place, and I'm going to have a little talk about how they're adding up like crazy to make some wonderful events coming. And we've got quite a few coming up. And just to let you know something, this meeting was supposed to be canceled. Then David G. decided we should have it, and wait till you hear all the things we have coming up. We're going to start out with Bishop Proto's going to come up and start the prayer, and then we're going to do the national anthem.
In my America, we the people is a colorless phrase.
In my America, I am free. Ooh, say, can you see? In my America, any one of my daughters can be a soldier, a doctor, and a mother.
In my America, freedom of speech doesn't exclude Christianity, it's rooted in it.
In my America, family comes first.
In my America, I can own my own business.
In my America, we honor our troops and their sacrifices.
In my America, one nation is followed by under God.
In my America, in my America, fireworks remind me of the gift of freedom.
In my America, I am free.
In my America, I can worship freely.
In my America, the founding fathers used the Bible to guide their pen.
在我美国，我有自由。
In my America, you can snowboard wherever you want to, even at the mall.
In my America, Charlton Heston is a hero.
In my America, I can raise my children in the nurture and admonition of my faith. In my America, freedom takes action.
Those public officials here running for office, if they'd just like to stand up and acknowledge who they are. Anyone here? Okay, in the back.
Leslie.
Yes, sir.
Leslie.
Yes, hi, running for District 10, Village of CDE. My name is Ken Lieberman.
Okay. And one of our guest speakers is running for the seat in Lake County, number 4, and that's Leslie Campione. She's here also. Okay, now we're going to start out. Where's Marilee Fiscal? Okay, Marilee, we want a treasurer's report. Are you coming up? Okay, well, Marilee is coming up. She's going to give us a treasurer's report. I'm going to go over a few of the events that we have coming up. On September 11th, Governor Scott is going to be in town. He's asking for a big turnout from the Villages for Trump Club. We don't know where he's going to be at and what time, but look in the Villages paper and you'll see what's happening. We have Frank Fitzpatrick is going to make an announcement now about Dan Webster, our congressman, who's going to have a fundraiser, and he's bringing in Louis Gohmert, the Texas congressman, and in the back of the room there's a table there to sign up for this event. Come on up, Frank.
On the 17th at Laurel Manor, Dan Webster, our incumbent congressman, is going to have a fundraiser, and you already know that Louis Gohmert, who was from the 1st District of Texas, is going to be with him. Dan has served the people of Florida for 3 decades. When he was in the Florida House, he was the first Republican speaker in 122 years in the state. He was also the majority leader in the Florida Senate. He, as I mentioned, is our incumbent congressman. He's also a member of the Freedom Caucus. Faith, family, and principles are his biggest asset. And the other asset he has is, I think it's 6 children and 17 grandchildren. But anyway, we have Austin Claire is in the back on the right there in the t-shirt. And we need some support in this, so we encourage you to go back and talk to Austin, and please show up on the 17th.
Okay, Marilee, you ready to give the treasurer's report now?
Yes, I am.
Okay, come on over.
Right there.
And you're going to stay up here for another announcement, too.
I am? Okay. Which one is that?
Hi. Wow, it's really great to see all you people here today on this wonderful holiday weekend. Did it stop raining out there? No, it's still raining? Wow. Okay, but it's great to see you here for sure. We didn't have a meeting in August, as you know, but we did make some money, and we had some expenses. Our cash on hand at that time came to $6,379.68. Our revenue was $690.05. We had expenses of $2,504.06, which left us with a cash on hand of $4,565.67. Now, let me explain the revenue. Remember when we had that wonderful bus trip to see President Donald Trump in the rally in Tampa? Yep. Well, everybody had a great time except for the bus trip. So, to have transparency, they refunded us a partial refund, which came to, for 40 people, $12.25 each. Wow, yeah. Okay. Now, if anybody wants their $12.25, I will be in the back and happy to give you a check. No problem. Okay? That's for total transparency. All right. Now, the big deal that we have going on in the back, Roxine is there giving out tickets for Death of a Nation. David G. decided that everybody needs to see it. So we're going to do it for free. But it's not free for us. It's not free for us. The theater costs us $2,000. But that's no problem. We're encouraging everybody to see it. It's a wonderful movie. Now, we have two other great events coming up in October. And one of them is our Trump Day dinner. Oh, you are? Yes. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't want to step on your toes. Okay, all right. Judge Janine. Judge Janine is coming on October 14th. She's doing a tour, and she will be at La Hacienda Rec Center, right here in the Villages. The tickets start at $25, which include a signed book. That also did not come cheap for us. The other one is $50 for a signed book and a picture. So, I am told that the $25 one with the signed book, that does not include the reserved seating. But I'm not sure how the logistics are going to work out with a couple of hundred people going through a line. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I was told. But the $25 one, which included a signed book, was supposed to have reserved seating, but it does not. Okay? And we have to cross that out somehow or another. I don't know how that happened, but it's so great to see all you people here. I'm so happy. Thank you. Where's my movie? Where?
have smeared him, went to war against him, assassinated him. Now their target is Trump.
Donald Trump wins the presidency. So help me God.
They say he's a racist.
This is a white lash
and a fascist. Who are the real racists?
Northern Democrats have conspired together with Southern Democrats to take away the fruit of other people's labor.
Who are the real fascists?
Both Mussolini and Hitler set up and ran welfare states.
This is done by the do-gooders, the liberals, the people who wanted to improve society.
Which party attacks our free speech?
How dare you speak against the bill?
Our religious liberty and our personal safety. A nation dies when its people are not free. We too must fight for freedom, regardless of the price we pay.
An end in terror is preferable to a terror with no end.
The stakes could not be higher. We're talking about America, the greatest nation on earth. We will save America for the first time. It's now up to us to save America a second time.
I've been in touch with Denise D'Souza's agent. He is so excited about this. He wants me to film the behavior of the crowd at this movie. And I've been to two of Denise's previous movies, and they weren't orchestrated. And I'll tell you, they were full. The villagers got up, they sang the national anthem, and applauded the movies, both the one about Hillary and about Obama. And if you remember, Denise went to jail for a year after Obama went after him and counted that. And the story ended up being that the FBI got a $100,000 budget to find something on Denise D'Souza, and they found out that he over-contributed to a campaign, and that's how they sent him to jail for a year. But our president pardoned him.
I'm sorry I forgot. We're going to pass the buckets, and I hope you will be generous enough to put a little small donation in. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to continue talking while she's doing that. On October 29th, we are going to have the first ever Trump Day dinner. It's going to be at the very patriotic Eisenhower Center. We got Nick Adams coming back again. We have Peter Feeman, who is the state representative to the White House for the state of Florida, is going to be a speaker. And I am working on a couple of real top-end speakers. I don't want to say who they are, but I'm not sure yet. And I want to let you know something. In the back of the room, where Karen is, where Karen Camperman is, there are handouts that a young lady called me that she wants to start a judicial watch club in the villages. And the information is in the back, and I am applying for one of their speakers, and I'm going to let them know that we're trying to do that. So something ought to happen for that. And the next thing, we're going to have our program journal directory, it's going to be called. We'll have it ready in about maybe another few weeks, but we want you to go out and try to sell ads. If you look in the back of the room, there'll be this flyer, and it has the price of the tickets, the price of the ads. We have it all set up. If the company doesn't know how to put one together, our own Rick Hyde, our IT guy, will put it together. I have Bill Seigenthal doing the camp. He's from South Lake Quick Print. He's doing the whole format. It's going to be just a great show. And I'm telling you, we're not going to publicize this for another 2 weeks because I'm getting calls from Gainesville, Miami. Everybody wants to attend this event. So if you're interested, we have tickets for sale in the back, and I'm going to wait a couple of weeks. It's 2 months away, but I'm going to wait a couple of weeks before I do anything. Okay, now the next thing I've got to bring up, this is just for our board members. We're going to have a board meeting on September 20. Wait a second, I'm sorry. The board meeting September 24th at Panera's at Light Sumter meeting. And you know the other members are welcome to come to the board meetings. They watch what we do and everything, and we invite them. And we even let them have input. So keep that in mind on September 24th. Okay, next we're going to have Miss Amy Ochetti come up.
Hi everybody, Rick Hyde. I'm the webmaster. Proud to serve. Our e-commerce company put together a really wonderful page where we can take payments for the Trump Day dinner. And it has all of the packages, all of the seats, everything is all available on the website. However, I almost stopped this happening tonight, being announced, because their form fails to label what's going on the right here. Now, being a webmaster, I have seen behavior of people that would just absolutely blow your mind how they figured out how to break things. So, having a little intuition about such a thing, see that top there where it says $75 for that seat? I put $75 in that field right next door. Do you know what happened? 75 fields opened up for all of the name, addresses, and information for all of the people that I have bought tickets for, and my total amount on my credit card was $5,625. So, the only way that I would agree to let this fly tonight, so that you folks have first choice of these tickets, please, only put the amount of the things that you're buying and not the amount of the dollars, okay? We don't want any $6,000 credit card. Thank you so much.
Now, according to our bylaws, we have to select a nominating committee that by the first of the year they got to nominate people for the board, and all members are open to apply, and Miss Amy Ochetti is going to come up and explain the process.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to let you know we've got a nominating committee already set up. There are 5 of us. We've actually already have met and kind of put together the process. What we're looking for is anybody who wants to run for the board. We want workers. I think Jim and the board right now, you really want people who are going to commit the time to the organization. So if you're interested, we will be doing interviews. So please, I'm going to give you my email. It'll be on the website also. So if you're interested, just let me know and we'll get you in for an interview. There are 15 slots. 4 of those are executive officers, so there's a president, vice president, secretary, treasurer. And then there's other board, whatever you think that you can contribute, that would be great. And we kind of can fluctuate with what those committees are. My email is AIMEEOCCHETTI@gmail. So please feel free. We'd like to really get people here and listen to what you guys have to say and what you can offer. Thank you.
This time, you guys remember Donnie. He was on our Action and Mobilization Committee. He's the guy that went around waving all the signs and cart parades and everything. And Don has a little his wife has a little health issue, and he had to resign, and we had a nice award we were going to give him here, but he wasn't able to make it tonight. But I wanted to recognize his service. The guy was an endless worker, and he made so much happen for the club. And when I was campaign chairman for Donald Trump in Lake County, Don was very involved with the Sumter County. We kind of all worked together, Lake and Sumter, and I mean, he was tireless. He did just a wonderful, wonderful job. Now, I'm going to have our guest speakers come up and sit at the table over here. And I just want to let you know that I've known Leslie Campione now for about 8 years as she served as a Lake County Commissioner. And Leslie attends 90% of all the REC meetings in Lake County. She's aware of all the representatives that come to voice the needs of the Lake County taxpayers. She has been an advocate for the taxpayer for as long as I could remember. And with her is her husband, Jack Cassell. Jack, 8 years ago, I'll never forget it as long as I live, this guy gave a speech on Obamacare that he nailed it right to the T on how does it implode. And I don't know, did you get national recognition for putting that sign in front of your office? You wouldn't treat anybody that had Obamacare? Yeah, he actually put that in front of his office. So they're going to come up and give you a 1-2 punch. But 1 second, please. You going to put the picture up on the screen? Okay, now. I got to tell you, you think we're Trumpsters? You want to hear what these two did? Unbeknownst to me, they had the party of parties for a celebration for Donald Trump at their place in Mount Dora. They had an Italian section, they had a barbecue section, they had a Mexican section, they had a bar, they had a band. And see that sign there? Where's Diane Reardon? She's around here somewhere. There she is. Diane was a just endless worker. Her and her 97-year-old mother just worked their butts off for me in the campaign. And Diane had that sign made up, Trump can't be bought. And everyone at that party that these two had signed that, and I hang it on my living room wall now. So anyway, I think Jack is going to start off first. So. You got it, Jack.
Thank you very much, everybody. To kind of give you a little bit of the background regarding the sign I put up, I guess everybody was a little bit ticked off when they actually talk louder. Scott won the Senate seat that Kennedy had been sitting on for about 3 years. And I thought that kind of broke the lock that they had on the 60 votes, but then they used the reconciliation process to get it through, and I got really pissed off. I mean, I just couldn't believe it. I just couldn't believe that they actually railroaded us like that. I mean, so that's why I wrote the sign, and it said, if you voted for Obama, seek urologic care elsewhere. Your health care changes today, not in 4 years. And that was in March. It was like, you know, some of my patients would pass it, and it didn't seem like it was having any impact at all. But I guess April 1st was when we heard about it, and it was April 1st, and my office calls me. I was done with surgery early, I was at home, and they said, there's a news crew at the office. I said, yeah, it's April 1st. Can't you do any better than that? And they go, no, really, it's CNN. Yeah, it was like, yeah, it was just like, it was absolutely amazing. So CNN, Fox, Anderson Cooper, and everybody was trying to make it that I was a racist. And, obviously it was a First Amendment issue, and they just wanted to shut me down. And so for about 2 months, it was pretty lively. And my new patient volume went up about 300%. And I got rid of the 12 biggest assholes in my family. I don't know where that. So anyhow, as far as this Trump guy, I'll tell you, he's my superhero, and I know you guys feel exactly the same way. He's like a Death Star. They throw stuff at him, he keeps getting stronger and stronger. And the people who don't understand him will say, well, if he would just stop tweeting. I mean, it's like, the guy is Columbo. Sorry about it, they totally underestimate him. And it's been 2 years, and he's still, he'll tweet and something shiny over here, and everybody will run, and, he just has them running all over the place, and he's 5 moves ahead. So, I mean, he's the only guy who's able to do what he's doing, so I get it. So anyhow, as far as Obamacare is concerned, it's completely intact still. The individual mandate actually is not out until January, but when you consider the fact that less than 4% of our population has Obamacare, it's kind of like a non-issue, especially the fact that they're not going to totally skim off about 25% of the Medicare budget. That was kind of the idea. So Obamacare is going to be a thing of the past. John McCain can't vote against it anymore. But one of the big problems we have now is the rest of the insurance. The commercial insurance industry is killing us. I mean, it's insurance companies gone wild. They're just raising their premiums. If you look 8 years ago, all of the companies, United Health, Aetna, Cigna, Blue Cross, they're all 10 times higher than they were, all the stocks. Why? Because everybody's getting funneled into programs, it's being mandated, and they're totally sticking it to us. I mean, I was paying $2,500 a month for my employees and family back then, and now it's $6,500. You can't do it. And the deductibles are huge. So the question is, when's our superhero going to jump into action? And I think it's going to be, after the election. I think that's what's going to happen. And obviously, he's got to get insurance companies to compete against each other. Why is it we can, car insurance, you can have a company from Omaha insuring you, but not healthcare. So they really, really need to compete against each other. And we have to get a lot of the things out of the hospital. Obamacare is, the only people who want Obamacare are the insurance companies and hospitals. Because they take the money from us, and they're the recipients of our money. So, American Hospital Association, they're guilty. And I know Trump understands this. He just has to do something about it, and it's on the list. So, I guess that's really all I have to say. So, any questions at all?
What kind of position are you? What do you think of the Medicare program?
I really don't know. I don't know too much about it. I'm sorry.
I can tell you, though, a friend of mine just checked into it, and she is going that route. We're talking about the program that everybody pays in, and the deductibles are very high. But as a general rule, everything that she's found out about it, and she's got some friends that have done it, they think it's a great idea. They think it's a great thing. So I think it's got a lot of promise.
Anybody else have any questions, Bishop?
Dr. Jack, Trump has talked about, and I thought he passed or signed a bill for associations to be able to sell insurance and across state lines. Do you know much about that, or when it'll be implemented?
Yeah, it just hasn't happened yet. I mean, it was kind of in the works, but I think it's on the back burner.
Anyone else have any questions?
Yes, Joe Chamberlain. We just moved from New York City, so we know what it's like to be in the public. Anyway, I think that we're going to have a difficult time if we don't really accept the fact that there's a word out there that the Republican Party, Congress, wants to do away with Medicare or reduce it. Based on the fact that most of the people here are retired, many of us are on Medicare and United Healthcare. So whatever Medicare pays, United Healthcare makes up the difference, which is not a lot. But that's the big key, because that's what the Democrats are going to get out. All right?
Yeah, well, the Democrats say that each time. They're going to get rid of Social Security, they're going to get rid of Medicare, we're racist, whatever it is. And it's not getting any traction anymore. I mean, do you think that there's anybody who voted for Trump 2 years ago that isn't supporting him right now? And now you're looking at 34% of black guys are, like, is that, I mean, he got 6% of the vote, and now there's like a third are supporting him. I mean, the Democrats, their whole base is falling apart. That's why they went immigration, because they understand the Democrat plantation is falling apart. And nobody's listening to them anymore.
No one's listening except the students who are being taught the wrong way.
Yeah, you're right.
Voters.
Yeah, the younger guys, but they'll be smoking pot that day or something. Thank you very much.
My name is Diane Leach, and I also just moved down here from New York City. And I have a question for you about when do you think President Trump is going to attack and fix our pharmaceutical problems? I'll give you a small example. I moved down here, I went to have a prescription filled for medication at CVS. It was $1,700 for 1 month. I went to the Canadian Med people. The same exact drug I got for $300 a month and bought 3 months supply. Now what is wrong with this picture?
Well, unfortunately, the pharmaceutical industry is in the free market, so they can do anything they want. They are leveraging, but things are going to change. Well, I guess after the election, there's going to.
The Democrats are controlling the microphone.
Testing.
The socialists.
Yeah.
Bastards. So, this number goes out to. Look, there's a lot of problems. The first 2 years, I think he's done a lot. Everybody agrees he's done a real lot. But he's making a list and checking it twice.
One more question right here.
No.
What do you think of catastrophic care and the doctors make cash?
The doctors make half of what?
Well, they take cash for if people come in and they're not in the hospital, catastrophic. And then you say,
The doctors can't take cash. We can't.
Insurance, and then doctors take what the actual cost is. What if we did that?
You don't know, don't tell us.
Well, first of all, they're not going to let doctors take cash.
Well, my brother's been doing it all his life. He's had catastrophic since he's young and pays cash to doctors. But he lives in Mississippi, so maybe he'll take it.
If he has a contract with, does your brother have insurance?
He has catastrophic insurance. He's had that for years, and he goes to the doctor and they pay. And if I pay $2,000 by the insurance company, he pays $200 to the doctor. Same activity, same sickness.
Well, the left basically has nationalized healthcare, and they don't want the doctors in free market. They don't want them accepting cash from anybody but.
Yeah, they don't, but the Republicans might want
I know. Everything needs to be different.
Yeah.
You know, it really does.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Why do we care what they want? Why do we care what they want?
No, we shouldn't care, but unfortunately, until we had Trump at the helm, things weren't going to get changed. I mean, look, 2 years ago, did anybody ever even dream that there was a deep state? What the hell? We didn't know. There was a left, there was a right, but there was, the controlling entity, and these are the guys that are basically keeping it the way they want, so that they keep you down, they keep the doctors down, whoever the major players are, insurance companies, hospitals, they're the ones that make the money, and you know how dirty things are. Drain the swamp, right? That's what it is, or will be.
Okay, Jack, before Leslie speaks, we have two things we've got to squeeze in. We have a 50-50 drawing that Stan's going to take care of. And Beverly kind of took over all of the jobs of about 5 people here before, and one of them feels that not enough information was given out. So we're going to have Miss Roxine Chamberlain come up and talk about the Denise D'Souza movie. But first, Stan is going to do the 50-50 drawing.
A couple of things, if I may. Number one, we went to see the movie opening night, and everybody in the show got up and applauded. You have to see the movie. Number two, I'll be meeting, Jim and I are going to be meeting with the Republican people about getting support for DeSantis. We need to do that. It's very important. When a gentleman stands up and says that he's funded by Soros, we need to back DeSantis and get him elected. We'll try to get something on the website. We're going to be looking for volunteers to help out, especially on election day. So we'll let you know about that as we go along. We have 3 $45 winners. The first one is 907-2399. The second one is 907-2442. And the third one is 907-2377. Do we have winners? Come back to the 50-50 table and you can come back there and get your...
Okay, now, Ms. Chamberlain is in charge of the Denise D'Souza movie, and she would like to add a few more things to it. We just gave Beverly a few more, too many things to talk to her.
It's okay. This is kind of a rerun. I got to talk into the mic, I'm told. Anyway, welcome. And I started thinking earlier when the crowd was coming in, I said, who needs vitamins? Just the energy of this room will energize you. Really a fun evening. Just a couple of things. In America, we have the greatest chance for opportunity than anyone else in the past 6,500 years. Never recorded in history have so many different gifts been brought from all over the world and deposited into one country. The late Jim wrote, that's a quote from him. I just want to kind of give credit where credit's due. I always believe that. And yes, this movie, and can you hear me okay? Yeah. All right. All right. That credit would be to our President CEO, David G. Debate fund's a good idea. That's why we have two major parties in Congress. Somebody says, I have a great idea for the country. We say, wonderful. Put it on the table. Let's debate. And then we start the debate by questioning the guy who has the great idea. After the third question, he says, I withdraw my great idea. I forgot about those three questions. Also by Jim Rohn. But you know, we're happy to announce that David G. didn't withdraw. Came up with this idea. I think it's a great one. And I think it would be wonderful to see this success. It's going to be at the Old Mill Theater at the Landings. And all that information is in the back. How many of you saw the movie that put out about Obama and Hillary? Wow, awesome. So, third time around, I think this is going to be even more awesome. I have not seen it yet. The tickets are free. We are interested, and one of the things that David G. had mentioned, he said, you know, I like the people that take the tickets, they either bring their pastor, bring a leader from their church, bring a Democrat. Okay, did anyone do that? Okay, all right. We still have a lot of tickets, and that we want to get out. We've got a whole month to do that, and my email address is there. You can email me if you need any more. And what I'm going to do is probably just scan them and email them to you, and you will have a numbered ticket. If your pastor attends after the film, he'll have an opportunity to stand up and introduce himself and his church and say a little bit about the film. And one of the things I think that David G. is trying to do, hoping to do, that we can actually have a coalition of pastors to come together and get involved with our local politics. Why? Because, I mean, this, from the state politics, the U.S. government, what's going on in Washington, D.C., it affects them, it affects their church members, it affects the church. And so we really are looking for a really nice sized group of pastors to be there. So help us along with this. One thing I did want to mention that if you are unable to use your ticket because emergencies and things come up, let me know. Either call me, email me, so we can issue it to someone else. And so anyway, happy to work with you, and thank you for your time.
Next, we're going to have our County Commissioner, Ms. Campione, talk about various issues that comes up for the Lake County County Commissioners that they have to vote on, and one of them is, taxes. It's always an upcoming issue, and she's going to have some other things to talk about. And I want to let you know, Leslie, I want to be the first one to ask a question when you get through.
There. So, talking about local government law isn't that exciting. It's more exciting to talk about Trump and all the work that we have to do in the next few months. But just by way of background, a little background, when Jack first did his sign on his door at his office in Mount Dora, I had filed to run for the county commission for the first time. I had not been in politics before. I had been kind of on the edges of politics. I'd always been involved as a college student. I'd actually worked on the Ronald Reagan campaign. It was the first campaign I ever worked on. And I mean, it clearly impressed upon me and sort of shaped my views and my values going forward from that point on. But I had decided to jump into the political ring and had filed my papers, and I just kind of gotten into that whole process of campaigning and doing all of the things that you do when you're running a local campaign. And I didn't know Jack had put the sign on his door. And I had gone out to the driveway and I picked up the newspaper, and that was the day before everything kind of blew wide open. And I sat there on the driveway and I thought, it's all over. I really thought I wanted to be a county commissioner, but it's probably not going to happen now. And from that point on, it was like a whirlwind. People in Lake County were very interested in the issue. the Obamacare issue was at the forefront of everyone's minds, and we became sort of a tag team, and it was a lot of fun, and it was that was the first campaign, and that was in 2009, 2010, and here we are at 2018, and I've been on the commission for 2 terms, and I filed in October to run for re-election, and I had some things that I'd been working on really hard on our county commission, and I knew I wanted to see those things through. And I decided I was going to go for one more shot on the county commission. I began the campaign process. I started doing all the things you do. You get your signs out there, and you do your fundraising and everything. And then June rolled around, and the last day to file, no one had filed to run against me. So the great news is I don't have to finish out the rest of the campaign. I will get sworn in November to be the county commissioner for Lake County for District 4 one more time. So I'm really thrilled. But I could say I probably owe it all the way back to 2010, thanks to my husband for making such a big splash there. But you may have noticed, one thing about Jack is he doesn't mince words, and like our president, maybe he's a little irreverent and rough around I was going to say rough around the edges, but irreverent sometimes. But he gets his point across. And me, on the other hand, I always try to be the diplomat, I always try to, whatever I can do to try to bring people together. And so it makes for some interesting conversations at our home. But I did want to give a shout out to Jim, because Jim was out there in Lake County when everybody was picking their sides in the presidential primary. He came right out of the gate for Trump, and I got to give him credit, because he picked the winner, and then he did the organizing and the heavy lifting and started bringing everyone together, and the rest is history. So we're really proud of him for what he was able to do. And, as I sat here tonight and I saw everybody coming in, and I listened to, everyone getting up and talking about their different roles that they have, the different jobs that they have to keep this organization going, it dawned on me that this is a room of patriots. This is a room of doers. You are action people. You are here because you care so much about our country. You care about your community. But you are right here on the front lines. And so I just want to applaud you for taking the time and being involved and being a part of this. We really are at a crossroads in our country's history. And all over America, I would venture to say that there are groups like this, maybe not as big, maybe not as organized, but there are also a lot of people that silently are supporting Trump, and they wish they had groups they could be a part of. But they're out there, and I think one of the hard things that we come across, and I found in local politics and being on a county commission, is trying to communicate what some of these concepts really mean, because the media distorts them. The left, the liberals, they distort the issues to create all of this sort of division and ill will. And I think that we have to work really hard to try to communicate what these things really mean, and we do have to be like ambassadors. You talked about having the movie and going to see the movie and inviting someone. You might want to invite a Democrat, but I would say better invite an independent. And a Democrat too, anybody else you can get to come and watch the movie. Because if you haven't seen the movie yet, it does such a great job of sort of laying out where we really are, where we are as a country, and it helps us, I think, better communicate individually, one-on-one, when we get ourselves more educated about some of these issues and we're able to articulate our positions. But I know I was supposed to talk about taxation. And I can say this much. One of the main reasons I ran for county commission was I felt like I needed somebody on the county commission to look out for me. and to look out for my family. And so I got into politics to be a watchdog, and to be someone who would take the time to understand the issues, to stand up on difficult issues and positions, and really be a representative for the people and the taxpayers. And so I've tried really hard to do that on the county commission. Florida is really difficult for many of you that might have come from other states because we don't have a state income tax. What happens is local governments have to sort of piece together these different funding sources in order to take care of all of the different things that have to be taken care of. Now, when you live in a place like the Villages, a lot of your things fall under, that other layer of government that you have here. Your CDD takes care of a lot of things like roads and utilities and things like that. But there are a lot of things that we all expect, and we kind of take it for granted that those things are going to be taken care of, whether it's the trash getting picked up or the potholes being filled or mosquitoes being sprayed so they don't get out of control, or hydrilla getting sprayed in the lakes, or so that we can get our boats through the lakes without having our propellers all choked up with the weeds. I mean, all kinds of weird things like that become part of what local government is responsible for doing. And it gets difficult because you've got to try to piece together those funding sources. And of course, one of the primary funding source is our ad valorem taxes, our property taxes. But we also rely upon sales tax. We have state sales tax, and then we have a local option tax, and then of course gas taxes. And the gas taxes sort of flow from the federal government to the state government, then back into the county government, and then some of it goes directly to federal, like, for example, U.S. Highway 441, I-75, those taxes go to those particular road networks because they are national and federal systems. But I can tell you that it's really complicated stuff, and you really have to pay attention to where all of these dollars are going and what they're being used for. And so I guess the bottom line is we have to pick people locally that we know will do the homework. They will be informed. They will look out for us. First and foremost, they will be looking out for us. I'm not here to plug myself. I'm just here to say that I know now that I've been on the inside of it, looking at it, I know how important it is for us to pick the right people. And a lot of times when they're out on the campaign trail, I've watched them. You guys have watched them. People that are running for office, and even people that have been elected to office, they will say what they think you want to hear. And it's hard sometimes to figure out who's really shooting straight with you and who's just saying, the stuff that they think that you want to hear. And that's the difficult part of it, is trying to discern who's really being honest with you. On our Board of County Commissioners, we've got a great group right now. We've got a really good group. We keep an eye on each other. I think that we will call each other out if we don't think that someone's being forthright about an issue. But we work together pretty well as a team. We are all Republicans. We all believe, I believe, that we understand constitutional conservatism. We have pretty good debates. We have a local watchdog, Vance Jochim, comes to almost every single one of our meetings, and he doesn't hesitate to blog about things and just like the question, the statement that was made earlier about having a debate. Someone comes out with a good idea, and then somebody else comes up with 3 questions about why that's a good idea or not a good idea. And that's how you work through some of these things, that you back and forth, and people bring up, well, what about this or what about that? And then finally you get to a point where you've hopefully come up with a policy that takes into account all of the difficult things. When the Parkland shooting happened in South Florida, that's a pretty good example of, it was just horrible tragedy. But it showed what happened in government. You had the legislature at the state level said, we must do something. We have to do something. They immediately passed legislation The legislation then put mandates on local governments and school districts to do certain things for school security. Those mandates came with a little bit of money to do something that cost a lot more. And so every local government had to try to figure out, how are we going to put these mandates in place? What are we going to do? And so, number one, I would say that the legislature, they immediately felt like they had to do something. They just had to do something because it was a terrible tragedy. It was a terrible tragedy. But they were so quick to put something into place that it was legislation that had flaws. And then we at the local government level had to try to figure out, well, what do we do locally? We don't want to be one of these counties that doesn't adhere to the minimum standards, the safety standards that have been put in place by the state, or we could be subjecting our local government, our taxpayers, to a lot more liability if we don't spend the money to put the mandates in place. So locally in Lake County, we put a referendum on the primary election to put an additional millage that would fund for 4 years the school safety requirements. We did that because the school district asked us to do it. They didn't have the money to pay for the security officers and the different things that were in the state law. It did pass, and it passed after a lot of good debate, a lot of good discussion, and in 4 years, hopefully the legislation gets fixed, some of these problems get worked out logistically, and then maybe at the end of that 4 years, locally, we've found a better way to do all of this and make sure that the schools are safe. But I guess I wanted to use that example to demonstrate that, sort of the knee-jerk reaction legislation, a lot of times that's where you get your problems. And then local government in the state of Florida, we're 67 counties in Florida, but we're the ones that get these mandates pushed down on us, and we have to do something about it. And so why it's so important to have good people on your elected boards is they have to try to figure out ways to deal with these issues and do them in a fiscally responsible manner. So that's where we're at in Lake County. Jim, you said you had a question for me.
Yes, I do, Leslie. And you kind of went into the second part of my question, so now I'm going to go backwards instead of forward. I was going to go forward and backwards. We had the 3 county sheriffs here. We had the Lake County Sheriff, the Sumter County Sheriff, and the Marion County Sheriff. And they were telling us what they do to help protect our schools, and they told us they were working on getting the funds to do it. And now this new referendum just passed. But let me now backtrack. You were one of the ones that voted against that increased millage back about 4 or 5 years ago, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but that passed. And that millage went through, but now all the property values have gone up since then. So with the increase in the millage and the property tax values going up, where is that extra money going? Wasn't there enough there to fund the school?
So, 2 things. First of all, the way that state law is in Florida, the school districts are responsible for funding all of their safety issues at their schools, not the county commission. 2 totally separate entities. And so what happens with our state law, when the legislature or the state law actually dictates the ad valorem that the school district can charge. So regardless of the values going up and the tax base getting healthier and all of that, you would think, okay, they're bringing in more money. Well, there's actually a formula. And so the money comes into Lake County, it gets sent up to the state of Florida, and then the state of Florida divvies it out to each of the 67 counties. So that's why the school district didn't have sufficient funds. Okay. The second part of it is that the sheriff's departments, now Marion and Sumter and Lake, we're all very different in that we have different ways of doing our funding. Sumter County is kind of an anomaly because the villages is so much of their tax base. Marion County is a little bit more like Lake County. But as far as the number of schools that we have, it was our elementary schools that didn't have any school safety officers at all. And initially, I was hesitant to back the school district to try to get the extra funds because they were given the chance in the state law to actually have what they were calling them school marshals at first, but now they call them guardians. And they are people that are on campus that would either be teachers or administrators that would be trained and pass all of the testing to be able to have a firearm on campus. But no one would know who they were. So I felt like if our school district wasn't willing to at least put those people on the campuses, or to see if they had administrators or teachers that could meet the test, that wanted to do it, that were qualified, that I didn't feel that it was right for them to go and ask the taxpayers. And by the way, we also need some more money to have sworn officers. Well, our school district did pass in a 3-2 vote. They passed the necessary ordinances in order to have the guardians on their campuses. And so, but they did restrict it to administrators, so they have to be someone who is not actually in a classroom. But after hearing all the arguments for and against, I felt like they made a really good decision going that route. But that did cut some of the costs down, and it did help.
Good. Are there any other questions? Bishop Cotto has the mic here. Anybody have any questions? Oh, there's one in the back there, Bishop. All right. And by the way, when you leave, there's some information on Commissioner Campione in the back there, right by the table there. That lady's raising her hand there with it, and you can get a bio on her. She works on a lot of charities. She works on is it the food pantry, the one that the big one coming up?
Yes, I try to help out.
Yeah, that's right.
Medicare's food pantry.
And then you also do an animal rights one also?
Well, I've been really involved with our Lake County Animal Shelter. We have transitioned our animal shelter, our public animal shelter, into a no-kill animal shelter. We've actually become sort of the prototype, an example for other shelters in the state of Florida. And our goal was to show that you could actually become a no-kill shelter, and it would cost less money to be a no-kill shelter than to be a shelter that relied upon the euthanasia as a way to actually control population of unwanted animals.
Okay.
And so it's really a cool thing that we've been able to do in Lake County.
Okay, we have a question in the back of the room there.
First off, thank you for being here tonight. My question revolves around the additional assessment that we got. So I'm in Marion County, but we just received a saying that we were going to get an additional tax assessment with our tax bill. I was wondering what that goes to, since we do pay, you know, the BDCC and all of that every month. What does that extra assessment go towards?
Did you say that you're in Marion County?
I live in Marion. Yes.
So I don't really know. I have to find out more about it.
Okay.
I can tell you this about assessments. Typically, under Florida law, they can only be put on property. Okay. So it's usually a fire assessment or a solid waste assessment. So it would go strictly to either picking up trash and that type of thing, or it would be for fire assessment.
So Lake doesn't have anything like that?
Lake County we have a fire assessment in the unincorporated area, and then we have a solid waste assessment in the unincorporated area. And this is another one of those kind of interesting things, is that within the county, you have the people that are actually in the city, so they're going to take care of their things like the trash, the fire department. If you're in the unincorporated area, then county government is responsible for providing those particular services. Well, on the tax bill, you can't mix it all up together, because the people in the unincorporated area can't be paying for the folks in the city, and the city for the people in the unincorporated area. And that's why we have, in Lake County, we use assessments for fire and for solid waste, because those are like user fees. They go strictly to the service that you get if you're outside of the city.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions at all? Oh, here's one here.
It's just a very quick question, I think. Ron DeSantis advertised that his opposition advertised that he was raising our taxes 23%.
Oh.
Can you explain that to me?
So from what I understand, that was during the primary, and that was a representation based upon the fact that he was in favor, or had been in favor of the fair tax, perhaps, and that's where that came from. I think that once that got put out into the public realm, that, hey, he's really talking about the fair tax, and everybody's familiar with the fair tax, which is the sort of, it's like a consumption tax as opposed to using an income tax. So I think that's kind of become a dead issue, because I think it got out there that it was actually being said to suggest he was really in favor of raising taxes as opposed to using a different type of tax in order to generate federal income, like federal revenue.
I might be mistaken, and I probably am mistaken, but it said, I'm pretty sure it said that he had already voted for it. No?
No. Is everybody on the same, do you think I'm right about this issue? It was a reference to the fair tax.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's all it was. It was in reference to a fair tax, which would have been a 23% tax, but you wouldn't have paid any income tax at all, and it would have been just a consumption tax. It's an idea that's been out there that a lot of conservative people are in favor of, but it would have been, if you made $100, you kept $100. But the second you went out to spend that 100, then you'd pay 23% on whatever. That's where it came from, but it did not mean an increase of 23%.
And since we're talking about Ron DeSantis, I know that this room knows how important it is that we get out the vote in November. You're talking about, it's just, I mean, the contrast couldn't be more stark. And in a lot of ways, they say that this is actually kind of a sort of foreshadowing to, a couple years from now, when we're back in the presidential election cycle. So it's going to be really important in a state like Florida to really demonstrate that we're rejecting socialism. We know that it doesn't work and that it's a path to failure. And the state of Florida has got so much going for it, and this would just it would be catastrophic if that were to happen in the state of Florida. And I can tell you at a local government level, it really matters who the governor is. I mean, it trickles down big time. And so it will affect us. Financially, it would have a huge negative effect on all of us.
Okay, any other questions? Here's a question over here.
Okay, I have 5 kids, and my daughter just called me. She's college graduate. She's working for Sears. Now she just got a job with Goodwill, part-time. So I told her, get out and vote in November so you get a better job. And then I wrote 2 letters when Romney was running, and I wrote to all of my kids, and I said, if you're voting for Romney, sign your name, and if you're voting for Obama, sign your name, and you're out of the will clause. So write to your kids. I'll bring a copy of that letter for the next meeting. Write to your kids, hit them in the pocket.
Okay, Bishop, there's a question over here somewhere on the right side. Oh, yeah. There we go. Okay. Another question.
It's not a question, it's clarification. In Marion County, roads are maintained by District 4. They're not maintained by the county. In Sumter County, in the villages, the county maintains the road except for villa roads, which are maintained by the CDD. In Lake County, I believe it's the unincorporated portion is maintained by the county. The incorporated portion is maintained by Lady Lake. So there is a difference. And for most of us, the amenity fee takes care of the garbage collection and recycling.
And way back when I was a city attorney in Lady Lake, for 9 years I served as a city attorney for the town of Lady Lake. So I vaguely remember how they handled the Lady Lake portion and the unincorporated portion. But they actually have formulated some pretty unique ways of handling things because of the villages part, the amenities that take care of the villages, roads and so forth. But thank you for that.
Any other questions? Okay, folks, we're going to end a little early tonight, but I want to remind you that on September 11th, look for the date. Governor Scott's going to be in town. He wants a big turnout here. And then on September 17th, Dan Webster is going to have a fundraiser with Representative Louis Gomer coming in, and we'd like to support him. And then we have our movie, The Death of a Nation, on September 27th. You can get the tickets in the back. The next thing, the Judge Janine is at the Hacienda, 6 to 9 on October 14th. Tickets in the back. And then our Trump Day dinner, we got that 2 months away, so we'll be pushing that a little bit later on. But that's going to be our next event, and it's not going to be a meeting, it's going to be an event. And also we have Trump campaign material in the back there. Denise has a table there with
Let me make a little announcement, because I ran out of the Keep America Great, the 2020.
Okay.
I ran home because I had people waiting. So if any of you are still in the audience that wanted these, I brought some more.
Okay, very good. Okay, thanks a lot, everybody. We really appreciate your support, especially on a Labor Day. Thank you.